We've got our 2015 Mustang GT running great thanks to our CPE cold air intake and our full header back LTH exhaust system. They're going to make it look a lot better and lower it with a set of ACCELATEC Lowering Springs. We've used these ACCELATEC springs many times in different projects here at CJ's, and we know the car is going to perform and look great when the installation is finished. Now, these will fit your 2015 through 2019 Mustang when not equipped with a Magna Ride suspension. Now, these ride great and perform thanks to the spring rates. The fronts are a progressive spring with a 182 to 217 pound per inch spring in the front and a 799 pound per inch linear spring in the back. This makes for a great performing car and great ride quality. For this installation, with a lift and a pole jack or a jack and jack stands, torque wrench, half-inch ratchet, 18mm socket, 19mm socket, 24mm socket, 3/8 ratchet, 13mm socket, 15mm socket, 17mm wrench, hammer, and a spring compressor. With the insulation under the hood here, these are the 3 bolts that hold the strut to the strut tower. We're going to remove 2 of these, loosen up the 3rd. Now, the rest of the front spring insulation takes place in the wheel well. We're going to start by removing the caliper. There's 2 bolts on the back to hold it in place. And pop the rotor off, put that out of the way. Okay, now remove the sway bar, put a wrench on the back, remove the nut. Okay, remove the sway bar length, put it out of the way. Next, we're going to pop these 2 clips off for the ABS line. Okay, to separate our strut from our spindle, we have to remove this nut and bolt. What you want to do is loosen the nut up to the end here so you can hammer it out, because these bolts are actually splined so they will not come out. You don't want to take the nut off, because if you hammer on the end here, it'll mushroom, the nut won't go back on. Put them right out to the end so you don't mushroom the bolt. Grab a hammer, knock them out. Okay, with our assembly on the bench, to remove the spring, you'll need a spring compressor. Now, most of you aren't going to own one of these. There are inexpensive spring compressors you can buy if you're doing more than a bunch of springs or for a car club, but honestly, you can rent these, and it's usually the better way to go. The cheap spring compressors can break easily. The good ones like this can be rented for only a couple bucks, make the job a lot easier. Once the spring compressed, you can remove this nut. Remove the strut mount. It may come off in 2 pieces. Decompress our original spring. Okay, we're gonna move the factory boot and the factory bump stop. Install this applied shorter bump stop, it's included with the kit. That's seated in the boot and install. Okay, now we'll compress our ACCELATEC spring so we can put it into our factory strut. Seated on the factory insulator at the bottom. Reinstall the nut and strut mount. Okay, now we take the tension off the spring compressor. Now tension on the strut mount, tighten it down. Install the dust boot. Our assembly is ready to go back on our car. All right, put the assembly back in. Make sure the notch goes inward. And I reassemble everything. Get the spindle back to the strut. Give these little taps just to get them seated. And we'll tighten these up. And reinstall the end link. The ABS line back in the clips. And then reinstall your rotor and caliper. Okay, now tighten up the strut nuts to 46 foot-pound. All right, moving on to the rear, the first thing we're gonna do is remove the shock so we can replace the bump stop. All right, pull the bump stop off. Kind of have to push it up a little bit. There's a little stud at the top, a little lip at the top, I mean. All right, work the old bump stop out. The new one up into place. Use an extension if you need to, makes it easier to push it up. To go back on the car. Okay, reinstall it. Again, this will be a tight fit. Make sure it is lined up. All right, put the mount back on the shock and reinstall the nut. Alarm the wheel well. Leave the shock disconnected and disconnect this brake line before we go underneath. All right, so now we're gonna let down the subframe to remove the spring. First thing we're gonna do is remove these two bolts here and the large blue bolt in the front and back. Now before you do this, make sure you support the subframe. Okay, now we can lower down the subframe. You definitely wanna do these one at a time. All right, now we can remove the spring. Okay, install the spring insulator on the top. Put the new spring into place. Spin it till it seats in the bottom, and jack it up, and reinstall the bolts. Get these both started by hand before you tighten anything down. Everything hand tight, we're going to reinstall these front bolts. Tighten these down. And the bolts in place, torque them to 129. At this point, lower your jack down, and you want to repeat the process on the other side. All right, both sides finished. Reinstall the brake line, and reinstall the shock. All right, finish the other side, reinstall your wheels and tires, and your installation's finished. Like I said, we've installed these springs before, and I still say this is the best spring for the money, bar none, for your S550. The ride is really great with these springs, and the stance, in my opinion, is absolutely perfect. And you probably noticed we did throw a set of wheels on while we had the car off the ground with the stock wheels off. These are not available yet, but we'll do a video in the future when they are available. As far as the install goes, it's a typical spring installation. Figure about an hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll be back on the road in no time. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you click on the CJ button so you subscribe for future videos, and click the corner up here for more videos for your Mustang.